There is a place where time stands still, a small village, only silence all around. No sound of cars, no crowds of people, just a river called the Blue River, flowing slowly every day like human breathing. This is the story of that village, that river, and some silent people whose lives are monotonous, but there is a rhythm in it, a calm rhythm that makes you fall asleep. When you walk along the Blue River in the morning, it feels like the river itself is breathing. The sound of leaves rustling. In the distance, a bullock cart is moving slowly, as if someone is walking along the road while sleeping. There is an old man. His name is Goggin. Every morning he gets up, sits by the river, and drinks tea. No one speaks. He just sits, watching the water of the river. One day, the river will tell him something, in the hope that Goggin's small hut has an old post and a blue sheet on it, which has not been washed for many years. The sunlight falls on the sheet. Slowly, a row of ants relaxes in that light. Slowly, Goggin falls asleep. You may fall asleep too, and after a while, maybe you too will be sitting next to Goggin on the bank of that river. The river relaxes in the afternoon sun. Everything stops. The birds don't talk. The shadows of the trees fall asleep on the ground. The children of the village sleep then. A little boy named Namai falls asleep listening to stories from his grandmother every day. There is no emotion in his grandmother's voice. He only says in a slow voice, "In a country there was a king who had no one to talk to. He used to talk to the river every day. The river remained silent. Still, the king would go to him every day. One day, the king fell asleep in the river. Then no one else could find him. Namai falls asleep. You must be thinking, there is nothing more peaceful than sleeping by the river. There is a turtle in the river. His name is Old Balai. He is never in a hurry. Every day at noon he floats on the water. Then he goes back down. The people of the village say, he must be the soul of the river. No one sees his rise and fall. Only the leaves move. A light ripple breaks the water with the wind. One day Goggin said by the riverbank, "Bolai, I want to be like you. No sound, no sorrow, just floating. The river just flows. Can't you hear it too? The soft sound of the water. When you close your eyes, it feels like you are the river itself." When evening comes, a sleepy feeling descends on the village. The birds return to the trees. The water in the river cools down a little. Nimai asks his grandmother, "Grandma, does the river sleep?" Grandma doesn't smile, just say, "The river never sleeps, but it makes people sleep." Are you also feeling a little tired? Close your eyes. Imagine you are walking along the banks of the Nile River. You have taken off your shoes. Your feet are touching the grass. No one is singing in the distance. Only the wind is blowing. You stop and stand. Then slowly sit down. Night comes soundlessly. Goggin looks at his shadow in the moonlight. The river is silent then, yet the sound of the stream echoes in his chest. A bird named Chandani does not call at night. It only changes its branches. The night's sleep is on its wings. Balai is sleeping under the water. Nimai is in his bed. The moonlight falls on his face. Grandma slowly places her hand on his head. Have you fallen asleep yet? Now close your eyes and think. This village is you. This river is your breath. and this night is the time when you are lost in yourself. Many years have passed. The river flows as it used to flow. Gagan no longer sits by the river. He used to say, "One day I will merge into the river." Nimai has grown up, but he still falls asleep to that grandma's story. But grandma is no more. Still, it seems like she is there. That calm voice of her voice floats in the air. The river is still silent, but who knows, maybe she is listening to us. If you are still awake, then let's be like the river. Quiet, slow, and deep. Now you close your eyes and just breathe. More slowly, more deeply, like the river breathes. Your eyes are slowly closing. Your eyelids are getting heavy. Now you can fall asleep. This story does not end here. This sleep is the real story. Once upon a time, in a land far beyond the mountains, where the sky was always soft and blue, and the grass whispered, Luma was not like the other clouds. While the others liked to race across the sky and roll into big shapes, Luma preferred to float slowly, gently, peacefully. She loved watching the world below. She would drift over quiet forests where owls slept in hollow trees, over sleepy rivers that hummed lullabies to the stones, and over sleepy villages where children dreamed under cozy blankets. Luma loved nighttime most of all. She wasn't a storm cloud. She never carried thunder or lightning. She only carried dreams, warm, sleepy dreams. Each evening, just before the stars began to shine, Luma would dip down low and listen. She listened to the frogs singing by the pond, the crickets chirping in the fields, the breeze whispering to the leaves, and when everything was just right, calm, quiet, and still, she would begin her journey. She floated softly over a sleepy hill where a little mouse named Mimi lived in a burrow made of leaves and moss. Mimi had tiny ears and a big round nose. Every night, Mimi curled up with a piece of soft cloth and waited for Luma, because when Luma came, the dreams came too. Luma would float down close to the ground and whisper gently into the burrow, and just like that, Mimi's whiskers would twitch, her little body would relax, and she'd drift into a dream. A dream where she danced on flower petals and rode dragonflies through fields of golden light. Luma would then move on. She glided over a quiet tree where an old owl named Alo rested on his favorite branch. Alo never slept easily. His feathers always rustled. His eyes blinked too much. But when Luma passed by, even Alo would settle down. She would hum a lullaby, no louder than the flutter of wings, and Alo would sigh, close his eyes, and dream of starlit forests and moonlit lakes. And so, Luma floated through the night, bringing dreams to every creature she met. A kitten curled in a windowsill, a baby deer beneath a tree, a squirrel tucked into a nest of twigs. Even the sleepy rocks seemed to smile when Luma passed. But one night, something changed. As Luma glided over the hills, she heard something new, a sound she hadn't heard before. It was small, soft, but it was sad. A quiet sigh in the wind. Luma stopped. She hovered in the air and listened again. There it was, a tiny whimper. She floated closer and followed the sound to a lonely garden at the edge of the forest. There, under a big pumpkin leaf, sat a baby hedgehog. His eyes were big and wet. He was curled into a tiny ball, but he was shaking. Luma came close and whispered, "Hello there. Why are you awake?" The little hedgehog sniffled. "I had a scary dream," he said,
"Of warm sun and gentle rain. A dream where you roll through dandelion fluff and drink dew from clover leaves." The hedgehog smiled a little. "That sounds nice. So Luma began to hum. Her hum was not loud. It was the sound of wind over wheat, of water trickling over stones, of the world taking a deep, deep breath. The hedgehog sighed, uncurled, and slowly, slowly drifted into a deep and peaceful sleep. Luma stayed a while, watching him sleep. Then she lifted into the sky again and continued her journey. She floated over sleepy hills and through silent valleys, giving dreams to those in need, every night, again and again. Always soft, always gentle, and the world loved her for it. Animals whispered about her. The cloud of dreams, they said, the bringer of sleep. Even the stars twinkled brighter when Luma passed by. And far away, in a little cottage, a child looked out the window every night, waiting for a certain shape in the sky. The shape of a cloud that floated slowly, never in a rush, glowing softly in the moonlight. When the child saw her, she would smile and whisper, "Good night, Luma." And in return, Luma would whisper back, "Sweet dreams, little one." In a land far beyond the reach of time, where the sky never changed color and the wind never rushed, there lived a traveler who had no name. He wore no shoes, for the grass beneath his feet was softer than feathers, and the earth was always warm, always kind. The air was so still that one could hear their own thoughts echo across the valleys like whispers in a cavern. It was in this quiet place that the traveler walked, not because he had to, but because walking felt like breathing. The sun in this land never set, but it never truly rose either. It hovered, always low on the horizon, a soft golden hue that bathed the fields in a warm amber light. There were no shadows here, only gentle shades of brightness that faded softly from one moment to the next. The sky was pale blue, like watercolor brushed onto silk, and not a cloud ever passed across its face. Birds did not fly in this place, nor did they sing, but occasionally a soft coo would echo from nowhere and everywhere, as if the air itself was dreaming. Each step the traveler took was slow, not from tiredness, but from peace. His robe brushed along the tall grass that swayed ever so gently, not from wind, but from memory, as if the grass remembered the breeze and moved in its absence. Each blade was a slightly different color, some gold, some silver, some a faded green that shimmered faintly in the everlight. He walked past trees that bore no fruit and no leaves, only long, thin arms that reached out like sleeping dancers frozen in mid-motion. The bark was pale and smooth, cool to the touch. Occasionally, the traveler would rest his hand against one of these trunks and listen. He never heard a sound, but something inside his heart always stirred, as if the tree remembered something he had forgotten. On and on he walked, not seeking, not fleeing, just drifting. And as he walked, the earth beneath him hummed softly, almost like a lullaby played by an ancient instrument forgotten by time. The tune had no melody, yet it soothed him endlessly, like the sound of rain on a distant roof, or the gentle rumble of a mountain deep in slumber. Sometimes he would come across small pools of water, so still they looked like silver glass laid upon the earth. He would kneel beside them, his reflection soft and unfamiliar, and trail his fingers through the surface. The ripples were slow, almost unwilling to spread. He could see images within the water, not of himself, but of dreams he once had, or dreams someone else may have dreamed. A boat drifting on a starless sea, a child sleeping beneath a sky of feathers, a doorway made of mist. He would smile faintly.
Once upon a time, in a kingdom wrapped in silken skies and soft golden light, there lived a king named Alderon and a queen named Seraphina. Their kingdom was nestled beyond the whispering forests and gentle hills, where time itself seemed to move slower and the wind carried lullabies sung by the stars. The castle they lived in was made not of stone or marble, but of dream wood, an enchanted material that shimmered in moonlight and glowed warmly at dusk. It stood beside a lake so still, its surface looked like polished glass, reflecting the pink clouds and sleepy swans that floated silently by. Every morning, the sun would rise slowly, never hurrying, spilling honey-colored light through the lace-like clouds, waking the petals of flowers that only bloomed in silence. The birds in the kingdom never chirped loudly. They hummed soft tunes as if they too feared disturbing the serenity that lay over the land like a cozy blanket. The people of the kingdom did not rush, did not shout, did not worry. They walked slowly, smiled gently, and spoke in tones like whispers. Even the horses trotted quietly on moss-lined roads. King Alderon was a kind man, with eyes like old gold coins and a voice that could quiet a storm. Queen Seraphina, whose name meant peaceful light, had a way of making time feel like it was stretching, like there was always enough of it. When she walked through the garden in the early evening, the roses would turn their petals to her as though listening, and the breeze would carry the scent of lavender to wherever she went. They did not fight battles or build empires. They did not worry about wealth or conquest. Their days were filled with soft duties, visiting elderly villagers, feeding the swans, reading old books aloud to each other, and sipping warm rose-water tea while watching the sky change colors. Their nights were spent on their balcony, watching the stars move imperceptibly across the sky, as if even the heavens were trying not to make a sound. The kingdom was known as Somnoria, and travelers who stumbled upon it rarely remembered how they got there. It was said the land only revealed itself to those who truly needed rest. Some would arrive as wanderers, weary of war or worry, and the moment they stepped into Somnoria, their eyes would feel heavy, not from sadness, but from comfort. Many would sleep for days upon entering, undisturbed by dream or memory. When they awoke, they often cried, not out of sorrow, but because they had never known such peace existed. One traveler, a painter named Elric, once wandered in after years of seeking beauty in the world. He had traveled through deserts, climbed freezing mountains, and painted the faces of children and kings alike. But he had never found a place that looked like what his soul longed for. When he found Somnoria, he dropped his brushes. He stopped painting altogether. He simply sat by the lake for days, watching the ripples spread like breathing on water. And then he started painting again, but this time, not for the world to see. He painted only for himself, because for the first time, he felt like he belonged. Queen Seraphina would often invite the visitors to sit in the garden with her. She never asked questions, only listened. She believed that silence was the purest kind of conversation. People would sit near her and speak softly about their dreams, their losses, their tiredness. Sometimes they would say nothing at all, and yet they would always leave lighter, as if the quiet itself had taken away a burden they didn't know they carried. Queen Alderon kept a journal, though he never wrote of politics or plans. His entries were long descriptions of the clouds, of the way the shadows moved across the lake, of how the scent of the jasmine vine changed slightly after a rain. He believed if he could capture those details, he could offer them back to the world like gifts. When Serafina read his entries, she would sometimes close the book halfway through and fall asleep with a smile on her lips, as though the words themselves were lullabies. They had no children of their own, but the whole kingdom was their family. On moonlit nights, children from the village would gather outside the castle, and the king would read them stories, not tales of dragons or heroes, but of quiet gardens, of stars that blinked slowly, of trees that dreamed. The children would yawn, leaning on each other, their eyelids fluttering like the wings of sleepy moths, until the queen herself would carry the smallest ones back to their cottages. Even the animals in Insomnia seemed to understand the sacredness of sleep. Cats would nap in sunbeams for hours, unmoving. Dogs would curl up by fireplaces and snore softly, dreaming of slow chases across endless fields. Birds rarely flew fast. Instead, they glided lazily, wings barely moving, as if the air itself carried them along like lullabies in motion. Time in Insomnia was not measured in minutes or hours, but in moments of stillness. There were clocks in the castle, but they ticked so slowly that the second hand sometimes seemed to pause entirely. Meals were never scheduled. They simply appeared when hunger was gentle, not sharp. Even celebrations were silent, festivals of candlelight and soft music that made people feel like they were floating. As the years passed, King Alderon's beard turned silver, and Queen Serafina's hair shimmered like starlight. Yet they did not grow old in the usual way. Their hands were warm, their eyes clear, and their movements steady. The more time they spent in peace, the more timeless they seemed. They became part of the kingdom, like the wind or the water, constant, comforting, and slow.